Anyway, let's go to the
Jack
next.
Johnson gave a super chat saying, "What care for trans kids is fine? Talking to a therapist, changing pronouns. Why do some people support puberty blockers? And what does the research say?" If you want to go dissect the research, I would refer you to go look at the CAS review or the CAS report that came out of the United Kingdom. It is the most recent, most comprehensive, systematic review of the literature and research that we have so far. So I am not going to go in a deep dive into why do some people support puberty blockers and what does the research say, because I'm not like an endocrinologist. I'm not going to be able to communicate that as well as others. My understanding is there was a narrative for a long time that, oh, well, puberty blockers are just a way to put a pause on puberty while a child figures out um, their gender identity, and then puberty can be resumed essentially if they decide a different way, or if they're on puberty blockers and they decide that they do want to medically transition, then they didn't go through, say, an androgenic puberty that's going to radically change their appearance. So then that way it's easier for them to start taking cross sex hormones and then more easily have the appearance of being the opposite sex. The problem is that there are very severe side effects to these puberty blockers. They are not reversible. That is my understanding. That is my understanding of the literature. I used to be more in favor of these kinds of interventions until I was presented with more evidence. And on the basis of that evidence, I changed my mind. And I don't think that it is a good thing for minors to experience, especially if you consider other down the line side effects that happen, such as if a male is on puberty blockers and then does cross sex hormones and then later down the line wants to have bottom surgery to essentially invert the penis. The problem is because that male did not go through a male puberty, his genitalia or her did not um have the benefit of the growth of the genitalia that happens during androgenic puberty. So then, if that person wants to have a bottom surgery, they actually don't even have enough material from the genitalia to then become the inverted penis. So, even from this side of supporting these kinds of affirmation, these kinds of interventions, there are good reasons to maybe not do that kind of thing, especially if we're considering other kinds of interventions that may want to occur later. And there's huge complications that can happen when you don't have enough material for this kind of a surgery. You know what I mean? So it's very complex. In my personal opinion, what kind of care for trans kids is fine. I don't support medicalization for minors in this realm. I think that there should be exploratory forms of therapy that take place. I do not believe in a 100% affirmative model of care, which is kind of what is popularized now, especially in the United States. I think a solely affirmative model is not comprehensive. And I also believe that if a child is presenting with claims of gender dysphoria and discomfort with their body, there are many other aspects of the totality of this child's psyche and psychological health that also need to be considered and need to be addressed aggressively alongside their gender dysphoria, because there's a high correlation of other comorbidities of mental illness. There's a high correlation of histories of sexual trauma that also need to be addressed, that can be a huge cause of gender dysphoria. And this needs to be looked at holistically to be able to understand what might be causing this child to experience these great forms of discomfort. And it's oftentimes much more complex. And we also need to acknowledge the fact that kind of the best cure for gender dysphoria is like adolescence. Like there is a lot of evidence to support that adolescents will outgrow gender dysphoria. So that's why I think it is safer and less harmful for people as a whole to wait until they complete their development to a reasonable degree and can legally make these decisions themselves. That is how I have adjusted my opinion based on the evidence that I have been presented with. Um, yeah. That's a summary of my opinion on this at this
You
moment.
know
Let
what
me know
the
what you think.
problem with what everything you said is, Susie? The issue here is
It's just too common sense.
no, the issue is that you actually care about the children instead of being ideological about it. And people who are ideological about this, either from the left or right, will not be satisfied with any nuanced position because, from one side, people want to be transphobic, and from the other side, people want to say that anything that limits, just having unlimited access to children doing whatever without consent, people doing whatever they want to children. They, if you come in front of that, and if you actually acknowledge some evidence for how that might be harmful to children, you would be transphobic. But the thing is, whatever your opinion is about this, try not to pick your conclusions based on whether you're trans yourself or whether you're left leaning or right leaning. Try to actually see what is the best for the children. I think Susie, even if you disagree with Susie, you can see that she's not looking at this based on her political leaning or based on any biases. She's actually trying to figure out what the answer is based on the evidence at hand. She actually cares about the children rather than virtue signaling from the left or the right to try to belong to a certain community. That's what she's trying to do. She genuinely cares about what is best for them. And she's also not denying the reality of gender dysphoria.
Oh my
She
God, no.
she she knows that that's a thing, and people being transgender is a thing. She's just looking at what's the best way to deal with that, not denying the existence of it, right? So,
Oh my God, yeah. And
yeah.
and I think part of my pushback is that the affirmative care model that is popularized in the US today and was popularized in parts of Western Europe, and now Western Europe in many countries is radically changing to correct against it, is that it actually looks at gender dysphoria in a very simplistic way. Versus there are many, many things that can happen within a child's life and within their psyche to give rise to this. And it's just not automatically, oh, they are trans. Like it's so much more complex. Um, and the history of trauma that can happen in a child's life, especially young women, young females, is something that I think has been really poorly handled with the way that the models have evolved. And yeah,
It's
this is based off of the evidence been presented with. The CAS review was so comprehensive,
it's
and quite
also
damning.
weird for me to say. It's also for me weird to suggest that some because whenever there is a new medical solution to a problem, there are some people who overcorrect, like with anything not trans related. People who try to turn this into, you know, over prescribing something. My father is a heart surgeon. Even when in heart surgery, my father acknowledges that so many patients don't need a heart surgery, and the heart surgeon recommends a heart surgery to them because that's how they make money, right? So why is people, when we see this everywhere else in the medical field, like, are you suggesting that it doesn't happen here while it happens everywhere else? Like, what is so unique about this? Like, we're not, this is something that is well known that sometimes happens in the medical field. It's all over the place. So this is not unique. It will, even if there are good solutions to this, obviously you have to be concerned about it being overused or it being used in places where it wasn't supposed to. It's not ideological. It happens everywhere anyways.
Yeah, yeah, yep. Um, okay, so Sid Dave gave another super chat. Oh, and Allied Atheist Alliance and saying, well said. That makes a lot of sense, Susanna. Thank you. And I know there will be people that call me transphobic because of this. I know within myself and my history and the people in my life and how I have saved the lives of transgender people in my personal life. Like, I know it's not true. So you can call me whatever you want. I don't care.